For 73 years, the run for the Indianapolis 500 pole has been the most pressurized day in racing. In this 74th year, that day has stretched to a week. Since the beginning of practice 2 weeks ago, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway has been drenched by more than 6 inches of rain. Crews have turned to every imaginable weapon in their running battle against the moisture as the countdown to Memorial Day continues. At the beginning of this day, 18 starting positions remained open for the greatest spectacle and richest motor race in all of sports. No man has won 5 Indy 500s. A.J. Foyt has a chance, and so does Al Unser. Both four-time winners are in the field. 4 Andretti's hope to make the 500 a family affair. Michael, Mario, and John are in. Jeff is on track for his debut. Putting a Penske on the pole for a record 3rd straight year was the dream of Rick Mears. A Penske, in fact, is on the pole, but it does not belong to Mears. 2 Bettenhausens are safely in the great race. Tony and brother Gary qualifying 29 years after their father's fatal Indy crash. There is but one pole, and it belongs to defending champion Emerson Fittipaldi. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. We began the day with 18 spaces. We are down to the final 2 in time trials for the 74th Indy 500. Never before has weather been as important as it has been this weekend. The conditions right now about a dozen degrees or so warmer than what we had last Sunday when pole qualifying began. Skies are overcast, a very gusty wind blowing in the opposite direction of what it was last week in the drivers' faces as they make their way up the pit straightaway. You're watching action on the racetrack. We are under green flag conditions right now. We have no one presented for a qualifying attempt, but we'll keep you updated on the progress. And anytime anybody gets out there and tries to make the field, we'll let you know about it. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Barsha, welcoming you back live to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This morning's headline in the Indianapolis Star, very much like the one a week ago. The pole run continues under a threat of rain. Well, fortunately, we never did see rain, and pole qualifying is now complete. And in any language you care to name, tomorrow's sports headline will say that Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending champ, will be leading the field in the 74th Indy 500. With me once again is Scott Pruitt, co-rookie of the year in last year's 500. And Scott, is it the weather conditions that have resulted in times being a little bit off and nobody able to challenge Emo?
That's what the biggest problem is. Virtually opposite wind direction from last weekend. Temperatures are up a good 10 degrees, and so we're not generating as much downforce, and that's the slower speeds.
We'll give you a look at the field summary, the cars presented thus far, the cars that made their attempts. 44 cars came to the qualifying line today. We had 41 attempts. 31 cars qualified, 10 of them waved off. Some are still in line, perhaps to take a shot today. The field average speed, 217.094 miles an hour, just about a half mile an hour faster than the record from just a year ago. Here is the grid as it presently stands. Emerson Fittipaldi has collected $150,000 in cash and prizes with record 1 and 4 lap speeds. The 4-lap mark, 225.301 miles an hour. Next to him, Rick Mears, who failed in his attempt to win 3 straight poles, but the Penske team will have the first 2 starting positions. Ari Lyondike came through with a great performance, fastest of the day thus far today. He's on the outside front row at 223.304. On row 2, Bobby Rahal, who was the provisional outside front row sitter. He is now on row 2, next to Michael Andretti and Mario Andretti, all at 222 miles an hour plus. Al Unser Jr. was expected to be the greatest challenge to Emerson Fittipaldi, but Al had a very bad day after clocking 226 in morning warm-ups. He could only muster 220.9. He'll be inside row 3. A.J. Foyt with a great qualifying run. He'll be in the middle of the row next to Danny Sullivan. Row 4, John Andretti in the Porsche, the highest-ranking non-Chevy in the field. Dominic Dobson and Randy Lewis fill out that row at 218 miles an hour. On row 5, Tony Bettenhausen next to Eddie Cheever, the highest-ranking rookie of the field, and Kevin Kogan. Row 6 will be Tero Palmroth of Finland, Raul Boesel of Brazil, and Gary Bettenhausen. On row 7, Jeff Brabham, Didier Tays, and Scott Goodyear. Row 8, Pancho Carter, who had some trouble getting into the field. Mike Groff, the slowest of the qualifiers thus far. He was the last of the first day qualifiers. Teo Fabi, the fastest of the second round qualifiers. That explains the differential in speed. On row 9, Dean Hall, Tom Sneva, who took several attempts to get into the field. Scott Brayton is in with his Cosworth. Roberto Guerrero, Al Unser Sr., and Jeff Andretti make up row 10. And on row 11, JR, Lone Star JR, Johnny Rutherford is into the field, second slowest. He is very much a candidate to find himself bumped. Now, as action continues on the racetrack, you see it is very empty out there. The qualifying procedure this morning started with the end of day 1. That is, the cars that were still in line last Sunday when the track closed at 6 o'clock went out first. They filled the field up to a certain point. Then we began with day 2. Cars qualifying next, cars that pulled out of the first day row last week but got back in line and were there when the day 1 closed out last Sunday. They went out first for their 4 time lap runs, 3 attempts per car allowed. Several drivers have used a couple of their attempts, and they will have whatever remains of their 3 in order to take a shot at the 2 remaining spots, and then we begin the bumping process. I know it's all very complicated, but bear with us, and it should be a very exciting weekend. Let's get down to the pit lane now to find out about one of the drivers who was not so fortunate in practice for today's second and third rounds of qualifying. Here is Dr. Jerry Punch.
Thank you very much, Bob. The first driver to qualify today would have been the 39-year-old Belgian-born driver Bernard Jourdain, but it was not to be for last year's co-rookie of the year. He was on his way to being the fastest Buick in the practice here at the early weeks of Indianapolis, but yesterday afternoon, late in the afternoon, with 3 minutes of practice remaining, his 89 Lola coming out of turn 4, tags the outside retaining wall, will come ricocheting across, and Jourdain just gets the car turned so he doesn't hit the inside wall head on. He glances off that and comes to rest against the side of the pit wall at the upper end of pit road. Now, the good news is Bernard Jourdain survived that crash, but I'm taking a look at this 89 Lola here in the garage. It's what's left of this Lola powered by a Buick. Here's the front part of the car where he crashed the outside and again the inside part of the retaining wall, and he came to rest up against the end of pit road, and it's this honeycomb carbon fiber chassis, carbon fiber tub that saved Bernard Jourdain. Now, he was taken to Methodist Hospital there where he was admitted to intensive care last night, but the good news, Bernard Jourdain is watching today. He will be moved from intensive care to a private room. We are told he has a cracked rib on the left side, did have a puncture in his left foot, otherwise will be okay. Let's bring in team manager for Andale Racing, Mike Hull. And Mike, what are the plans now? Bernard, I'm told, may be released tomorrow?
They've told us tomorrow about noon he'll be released from the hospital, and we don't know what they'll do as far as releasing him to drive here. That's a whole nother story. He's beat up pretty badly, but we're happy that he can get out of the hospital so soon, especially with what you've seen here.
Now, what would be the plans if the big if game, if he were released to drive by Henry Bach here, the track physician, what would you be able to do? Both cars are gone. Yeah,
our team doesn't have race cars now. So if we can do anything with anybody, the earliest he could be in a car would be somebody's car that's already qualified, a car on carburation day that's been done here before. We're not going to rule that as being a non-possibility, but that would be the only thing we could do. He's probably not physically able to drive yet, as we know, and probably wouldn't be till Tuesday or Wednesday.
What a story. Last week, Bernard Jourdain was the next car to qualify on our qualifying show a week ago, just 2 minutes away from qualifying, and he would have been in the field last week. And in fact, he would have been in England today at Silverstone in a Group C race instead of back here at the racetrack. But a tough break, and Bernard Jourdain, I'm sure, will be back in the future. Another young driver standing by, hoping to make his way into the Indianapolis 500 field. A third-generation young man, Billy Vukovic, standing by with our Gary Lee.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Good afternoon. And we never thought with the weather forecast we'd be squinting here because the sun is out. We're in the North Pit with a guy who was Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, finished 12th last year, and now your third year at Indy has been very trying, very frustrating. A concussion from that practice crash. First of all, physically, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm all right. We're just trying to get going again.
What's the problem right now? Windy conditions?
Yeah, it's windy. It gives you a big push down the back chute, and a couple guys have crashed. Chassis and Vogler have pushed in the fence, and we went out there and was a little loose in one and got a big jump off of two and ran pretty good down the back chute, and about did the same thing they did. So we're just kind of waiting for the wind to die down.
Realistically, the best laid plans can be placed on the shelf because of Mother Nature, and that's what we're waiting for right now.
Yeah, really the weather, except for the first weekend here, has been horrible. I mean, all week, even last week, part of the week, it's windy and raining, and haven't had too many good days.
What will you feel comfortable with? What will it take?
Our bottom line right now is 212. Anything below that right now, I mean, you never know. We're going to wave it off.
Weather permitting, we'll see Billy Vukovich III yet this afternoon. Bob?
Thank you, Gary, and good luck to you, Billy. We'll give you a look at some of the cars, in addition to Billy, that have yet to qualify, and there are some good ones in the group. Rich Vogler suffered his second crash. Recall the last Sunday, he closed out qualifying with a run into the turn 2 wall. Jim Crawford, with that powerful Buick, still has a chance. Bernard Jourdain probably will not be back, but it remains to be seen, as you heard his crew chief Mike Hull tell us. Steve Chassis has also had another spin and crash, took the right front corner off his car. Stan Fox, who has usually come back in one of A.J. Foyt's backup cars, he's got his own car, and he could be quite a threat. Buddy Lazier, youngest man in the field, or entered for this year's Indy at 22 years of age, still to qualify. Rocky Moran has switched from Cosworth to Buick engines. He could be a threat. Guido Dacco from Italy. Jeff Wood, another of the rookies. And Salt Wather trying a comeback after 10 years being away from the speedway. Billy Vukovich III, you've already met, and John Paul Jr., the former sports car champ, will take another shot. We'll give you a look at the rest of the drivers throughout the day. ESPN Speed World live coverage of the time trials for the 74th Indy 500 is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. By Yokohama Tire Corporation, one of the fastest growing tire companies in the United States. And by Kawasaki Motors Corporation USA. Kawasaki, let the good times roll. We'll be back with the continuing story of time trials for the Indy 500 when we return. Stay right there. Live action coming up. Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where it looks like Raul Boesel has Scott Pruitt's former race car out on the track. We are in green flag conditions here, so the entire field can go out and practice, work on their race setups if they like. Scott, we've already seen the weather conditions, about 68 degrees with a strong wind blowing the driver's face as Raul Boesel crosses the start-finish line. What does that do to the decisions, the strategies the drivers have to deal with right now?
Well, the biggest question right now is, do they go ahead and qualify today with the high winds, or do they wait for tomorrow? Tomorrow there's supposed to be a good chance of rain, and so it's a pretty big gamble. Right now, like Billy Vukovich said, they're waiting for the wind to calm down. Generally it calms down during happy hour, which is from 5 to 6, and so they're just hoping that towards the end of the day it will calm down enough for them to get some pretty good speeds.
31 of the 33 cars are already in the field. The first driver out after the crash suffered by Bernard Jourdain last night was Danny Sullivan. His teammate Emerson Fittipaldi led things off last Sunday. We'll give you a look at the last 2 of Danny Sullivan's runs through the magic of videotape. Here he comes in the number 7 Penske 90. Roger Penske there looking at the watch with Emerson Fittipaldi nodding his head.
You know, it was real interesting on Monday because Danny spent a lot of time in Emerson's backup car. He was back and forth, and I think that he was seeing if, in fact, that his setup was better than Emerson's or vice versa. It would be interesting to find out if, in fact, that he did run his setup or Emerson's setup.
There you saw his lap 2 speed, 221. Emerson's speed, 225.5 miles an hour. And no one to this point was able to touch it. In fact, Danny is in a reskinned backup car from Emerson. Danny's car was a short track car, so they took Emerson's backup car and reskinned it in the number 7 for Danny. Roger Penske checks Danny's 3rd lap and his final through the short chute. Al Unser Jr. says at the speeds they're running this year, the short chutes just disappear entirely. His lap 3 speed, 220.022. Giving him a 3-lap average of 220.241. At that point, Emerson was safe from his teammate.
I know they're hoping for a lot more today than 220. But again, you know, the weather is a big factor today. With the higher winds, with the higher temperatures, they just couldn't get the speed that they wanted to get.
Once again, you're watching on videotape as Danny Sullivan crossed the start-finish line, made his way into the field. He was in the first 2 rows, but that was not to last as the day went on. Danny Sullivan in the number 7 Marlboro Penske Chevy 90 came through with a 4-lap average of 220.310, enough to put him well up in the field. And afterwards, our Jerry Punch talked with the former winner.
Danny Sullivan qualifying at over 220 miles an hour. Danny, you were concerned a little bit about the wind. Did that bother you?
Well, it was pretty strong down the front straightaway, and you'd feel it. You come through turn 4, and all of a sudden it just hits you in the side, and you turn off there, and you think, well, at first I thought something was wrong with my motor, but But it was strong, but that's going to be the same for everybody. I think it's going to stay fairly consistent today, and it was consistent throughout the run.
You picked up almost 2 miles an hour between lap 1 and lap 2. A different line, or just you just caught some wind?
Well, a little different line. You remember I told you about those changes that we made. It wasn't as significant as I thought. I made a little change to my line. Had to go down low because of the push, and just picked up a couple miles an hour there.
Well, you're in the field, and it's got to take some of the pressure off after having to wait a whole week and concerned about the weather.
Well, it is. I mean, we'd all like to run faster. We'd all like to be on the pole, but at this stage, the way we've been going, I'm real pleased with just being in there and with a good, strong position. Hopefully, we'll end up in the first 3 rows and have a great race on May 27th.
I guarantee you will. Danny, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so Danny Sullivan eventually wound up 9th, and one of the guys who bumped him was this guy, Arie Luyendyk, the Flying Dutchman, in his Shearson, Domino's Pizza, Lola Chevrolet. Luyendyk cutting consistently quick laps as once again Emerson Fittipaldi was raked over the coals. Luyendyk was one of the guys he suspected the Penske team was afraid of, both Al Unser Jr. and Arie Luyendyk. Way down underneath that white line, all 4 wheels down to the grass.
Arie's run strong all month long. I mean, since they put the car on the track, he even made the comment that he was surprised at how quickly they had gone. Even when it was windy, they ran very, very strong. And that really came to today. You saw that with the high speeds he ran, he was the quickest man today, and definitely, I think, surprised a lot of people.
He was a very quiet runner, though, here at Indy. You didn't see him at the top of the timesheets every day when Al Unser Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi were cutting laps at 2:28. But Luyendyk was always in there running 2:23, 2:24, 2:25, and doing it with both of his cars. Both the primary and the backup were going very, very quickly, as opposed to some guys who were only spending 8 or 9 laps in their backups. Luyendyk worked them both over and got them both up to great speed. So he really had a pretty good situation when time came to qualify. He had 2 quick cars at his disposal. Once more, way down low on the racetrack. Excuse me, Scott.
You know, last year they were the factory Cosworth team. This year changed the Chevrolet. So a lot of things have turned around for the Shearson team this year, as well as, you know, Raul had moved over and Arie had come in. So it's really good to see the team coming back as they are.
Doug Shearson up in Michigan actually has a hand in a couple of drivers' futures here at Indianapolis. He is also handling car preparation for Scott Goodyear, who is in there with his McKinsey Financial, Lola. But this is his primary thrust. Arie Luyendyk, his 4-lap average, very, very consistent, 223.304 miles an hour. And we talked with him when he climbed out.
Arie Luyendyk, to no one's surprise, an outstanding effort in qualifying, over 223 miles per hour. Congratulations on a great run.
Well, for a while I thought it wasn't going to be enough to stay on the front row, but when Al went slower, that really made my day. I'm really happy with the front row position.
You made some changes in the car this morning, which made a big difference.
They made enough. I took off the rear gurney flap, which gave us some more straight line speed, and it still was good on the corners. And the crew, from the first day on when we got here, we were fast, and for 2 weeks long, the car has been really good. And it's just been a long wait for 2 weeks. I'm glad it's over.
Happy to have the Chevrolet engine and Doug Shearson?
I'm real happy with the whole combination. I think I'm looking forward to a great race.
Arie Luyendyk, over 223 miles per hour. Arie?
I'd just like to say hello to my wife and my son and my daughter. Hi.
And they got to be a happy family as we'll watch the Dutchman here on the front row in Indianapolis.
And that is a big improvement in Arie Luyendy's best start. He is on the outside of the front row. His previous best in 1988 was 6th position. We are still under green flag conditions as you look live down on the pit lane here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Johnny Rutherford may have another attempt in him. We'll let you know when we come back.
Back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the greatest spectacle in racing. We're qualifying today, trying to get qualifying in here for this 74th running of the famed Indy 500. Hello, everyone. I'm standing by with a man that's familiar to many, many IndyCar fans over the years, a 3-time winner here, Lone Star JR, Johnny Rutherford. And Johnny, you got the car in today, a qualifying lap for the backup car, 204.8 miles per hour. Not what you had hoped to run, but just about all I guess you could get.
That was about it. You know, Jerry, we worked very hard with the car, making a lot of changes, and it was windy today. And they were predicting rain, but it's turned out to be blue skies, which is indicative of my kind of month, I guess. You know, if it's going to be opposite of what they say, then it will happen if I'm involved. But we just decided to take a shot with it and hopefully get in before the weather.
Now, your car owner, Jeff Stoops, had made an effort to try to get you a 90 car, but it fell through just about an hour or so ago. So I know you don't want to keep that speed, but you don't have any choice. The 89 car, earlier in the month, you tagged the wall with that car as the car was coming up to speed and spent the night in the hospital, and apparently okay to come cleared to drive.
Yes, that was just, it rattled me around in the car and broke a bone in my leg. It's not a load-bearing bone, so it's no problem other than it's very, very tender. And I've had some special leggings made that are bulletproof, as it were, the Kevlar carbon fiber leg coverings that I'm wearing to protect that part of it again. So, yeah, it was very disappointing to lose our primary car and then be relegated to this 2-year-old 88 Lola. And it's not been a lot of fun, but we've got it in the race, and we'll just cross our fingers and hope that it works.
As a 3-time winner, there got to be some people who may come to you and say, how about my car? Would AJ be a possibility, a fellow Texan?
I have talked with AJ, and he is bound by contract to run only one car, so he is not at liberty to be able to run a second car, and there are not that many cars around that are available, and that's the problem.
Johnny Rutherford, a 3-time winner here, 204.8 miles an hour. It may stand up here, of course, and if it would, he'd be the 25th year he's in the field here for the famed Indy 500. Let's go up pit road to Gary Lee.
Jerry, earlier we heard Ari Lyondike talking about the gurney lip. Well, this is a gurney flap or a gurney lip on the rear wing. Now, this is really a compromise in setting up a car. This increases the downforce in the corner, but it also increases drag down the straightaway. If they take this off, they may get more miles per hour because of less drag down the straightaway, but perhaps less downforce in the corner. So it is a compromise.
Thanks very much. That, of course, the rear wing on Pancho Carter's car. Pancho not in the field yet, and he is a big crowd favorite here at Indianapolis. Scott, you just had your nose in the rule book. And what about those numbers intrigued you?
Well, what I was looking at was the fact that right now the cutoff point is 203.643. That's Groff speed. Last year, Bernard Jourdain was on the bubble at 213.105. So even though we're seeing higher speeds with the fastest guys, the actual cutoffs for the top 33 is somewhat slower than last year.
I should correct myself. Pancho Carter is in the field as things presently stand. He is inside of row 8 alongside Mike Groff. There you see Pancho's car. We are still under green flag when we do not have someone on the track making a live qualifying attempt. The cars are allowed to go out. Anybody in the field can go out and work on his race setup for the event a week from tomorrow. We have no cars at the moment on the racetrack as we work toward the witching hour. There is Michael Andretti's car. Michael has just pulled off. I may have given the impression last week that Alexander Julian actually designed that car. He did not. He actually designed the paint scheme along with that of the uniforms. Actually, that's looks like Mario actually climbed out of that car. Michael's sitting on the pit lane. They are pretty cars. Now here is a look at Al Unser Jr. Here is the guy, this is on videotape now. Everybody expected after that 228.502 ripper that Al Unser Jr. was just biding his time. Well, heck, he said it in the papers. He said you're going to have to wait a week to see the fastest run in this year's qualifying, but it didn't work out that way. He was actually quick this morning at 226.729 miles an hour, but somehow it came apart when he got on the racetrack.
That's one thing that really tells you on how fast this track can change. Even though they were very, very fast this morning at 226, they just couldn't carry the speed during qualifying. I heard him earlier saying that they just had too much of a push. He couldn't carry as much speed to the turn as he would like to. So it was really disheartening for him. I know he had great expectations, so 220 was quite a bit off the pace of what he wanted to run.
There was Emerson Fittipaldi, and look at his face. Now he knows the man out there. A little deep breath, maybe a little palpitation underneath the Marlboro jacket. This was the guy he was watching. Now, the first lap at 220 was way off Emerson's average of 225. So Emerson knew that he was at least safe unless Al Jr. could come back and just really rip one off. Way down low. You could tell he was really trying, getting all 4 wheels down under that white line.
He was really trying hard too. You can see how close he comes to the walls. And I'll tell you, for Emerson, his heart just about stopped when he got this first lap time.
What goes on in your head when you're sitting in the car? See, Emerson knows after that lap that he's not going to be able to get it back. What goes on inside your head when you know that the guy is safe? Excuse me a second. Gary Lee stepped over to chat with Emerson as he watched all this, and here's what the pole sitter had to say.
I think you had the pole. Congratulations.
Well, Gary, I'm very pleased. It looks like we had the pole. Another 2 laps for Lord Jr., but I think we got it.
It's been been a long, trying, emotionally charged week for you.
For sure.
Give us your thoughts right now, your first pole position at Indianapolis.
Great.
That's the toughest thing. You know, Emerson had to wait all week long, had to sweat it out all the week long, waiting for Little Al to qualify. And so, I mean, it was real nerve-wracking for him, just waiting to see if, in fact, Al could go quicker.
Everybody thought the pressure was on Al. Al actually blew the engine in his qualifying car this morning during the warm-ups. Rick Gallis said that that wasn't a big deal, that they could change out the engines and that they thought he would be just as strong. Didn't work out that way, though. The lap 3 speed, 220.978. Saw the 3-lap average. And at this point, he needed something in excess of 230 miles an hour if he was going to be able to wrest the pole away from Emerson Fittipaldi, but it just wasn't there.
As you saw earlier, I don't even think he could slip a piece of paper between his tires in the wall. He was awful close.
And across the start-finish line, Al Unser Jr., who said that the pressure this year in qualifying was worse than it has ever been before. He left his qualifying car all week long, just worked on his race setup, knowing he'd be solidly into the field. There is his average, 220.920 miles an hour. When he climbed from the car, we talked with him.
Al Unser Jr., Al, I know you had hoped to run considerably quicker, but looking at your qualifying run, the car didn't appear to handle very well for you.
Yeah, we just, it changed on me. I don't know exactly what happened to it, but it pushed real bad on me. I had to run all of the laps under the line, and it just pushed real bad, and I had to lift in all 4 corners. So,
did losing your qualifying motor yesterday have a major effect on you, having lost the qualifying engine yesterday?
No, because we had the car working real well this morning, and so you know, it just changed from this morning to this afternoon. You know, the ambient got a little bit hotter or something. Something happened to it. I got to go back and check. Could have been the shocks, could have been anything.
But the pressure's off for qualifying. Now you can get ready for the race.
Yeah, now I'm going to go for the race.
And the win continues as you look on live from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tough day for Al Unser Jr., who has never sat on the front row for a 500-mile race. It was a very good day, though, for one of the Indianapolis legends. And when we come back, we'll show you how A.J. Foyt handled his qualifying. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on what is rapidly becoming a better and better day. Practice goes on. You see some of the cars on the racetrack. That's Raul Boesel making his lappery, hoping to get ready for the Indy 500. Scott Pruitt, what kinds of work do you go through at this point in preparation?
Well, right now, what they're probably doing is getting the tires set up for the race. The top teams will go through as many as 20 sets, make sure they're all balanced, making sure they're the right stagger, making sure there's nothing funny that happens with the tires, getting them all set, all put away for the race. They're not really working on a real good race setup right now because of the wind. Probably will not be as windy for race day, so it doesn't make much sense to set up the car for these conditions. They know what they have to do if the weather gets this way, but right now they're probably just working on, like I said, tires.
20 sets of tires, by the way, will run you something in excess of $30,000 for the week. Now, earlier today, here was the run for the grand old man of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, A.J. Foyt, seeking his record 33rd consecutive start. You see his helmet bobbing around there in the seat. There is Jim Gilmore, his longtime partner in Indianapolis car racing, and A.J. really put on a show for the crowd today.
Spent some time with A.J., and I have a lot of respect for the man. I mean, we raced IROC together, we raced some IndyCar races together. I mean, he'll lay it on you real hard, but he's fair driver. I mean, it's wheel to wheel, and it's fender banging in the IROC series, but he was fair. I mean, he'd give and take, and he's taught me a lot about the ovals also.
AJ took this car basically right off the truck. The Lola car came to him very late. He and his team dropped their Chevy engine into it, basically rolled it off the trailer, went right out and ran about 213 miles an hour on their first day here. AJ puffed up a little bit and cried at that. But he has really brought this program together, lapping at 219, 220, very close to the wall there in the short chute. Onto the backstretch on his final lap of qualification, and when AJ struts down the pit lane, the crowds just come to their feet. There is no greater favorite than AJ Foyt. 5th place last year, his best 500 finish in a long time. Watch out for AJ Foyt this year.
He certainly was excited after the Phoenix race. You know, he said, hey, we're back now. We have the Chevrolet, we have the new cars, we're running strong. And I think, in fact, that is true. I think he'll be a top contender for this race. He's finished very, very strong. last year. In fact, I remember racing with him some last year. He's a tough old man.
And he will become Dr. Foyt. The day before this year's 500, A.J. Foyt is going to be given a doctorate in engineering from the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana, for his contributions to motorsports. I'll give you a look at A.J.'s 4-lap average. Very consistent, quicker all the way, 220.425, putting A.J. in the middle of the third row. Here's what he had to say about his run.
A.J. Foyt, A.J. 33 consecutive Indy 500 starts, and today a great effort in qualifying. Congratulations.
Well, it really is. You know, we had our problems all week. The cars came to us late. We have no time to really test. In the qualifying line, everybody thought it was crazy. We put more wing in the car and changed the rear toe on both rear wheels, so I didn't know what it was going to do till we took the green flag. But this morning, fastest we run was 2:17. I was really trying, so I had no earthly idea, and that's the reason my pattern was so crazy on the racetrack. Car was responding good, but I wish we'd had a lap or two to try it before I took the green. Maybe we could upset somebody.
The crew told me that you weren't real happy this morning with those laps and you were having trouble in turn 4, but those 5 decades of experience paid off. And said A.J. made the changes himself, and you see what happened.
Well, that's quite true. That was the biggest thing. I made up my mind I had to do it, and we did it.
The crowd cheering when you came in. I mean, you don't even have to look. You know it's a Supertex A.J. Foyt. A.J. back in the Chevrolet engine this year. Got a good shot at win number 5.
Well, that's quite true. I really owe a lot to Chevrolet that made this run possible. Mr. Perkins and also Herb Fischel. They did a great job, and VDS Engine put the engine together, and I'm real proud of them.
A.J. Foyt, a great qualifying effort. Congratulations.
And for the man with more Indianapolis experience than anyone, here's a man with less than anyone. Eddie Cheever, Formula One veteran, making the big step over to IndyCar racing. He has been the fastest rookie thus far, and he is now the fastest rookie in the field. This was his qualifying attempt, once again earlier today, being shown to you here on videotape, way down low, all 4 wheels under the white line. Together with Dean Hall, Eddie was one of the first rookies to pass his Indianapolis driver's test, and he has been consistently fastest rookie out here.
Eddie's ran very, very well all month long. In fact, I believe they peaked for qualifying. He ran a 2:19 in qualifying. I believe the fastest until that was around a 2:17. So, you know, he has a lot to learn here. I can really sympathize with the fact of being a rookie here and all the ins and outs, just being from road courses. And it's I mean, this is a tough place. I mean, there's so many ins and outs about it, and experience really comes into it. I mean, fine-tuning the car, just like AJ said, he changes the toe out in the rear a little bit for different ways to handle. So it's just a lot of time around this track before you really can get an understanding for it.
I think Eddie has probably been very well received by the Indianapolis fraternity as well. He's been very humble, taken a very low-key approach. There's a look at his terminal velocity at the end of the back straight, 228.798. Through turn 4, lost about 9 miles an hour. That's not exactly what you want. 2 to 3 miles an hour is best. Got real close to the wall there. I think maybe Eddie had a notion as to how close to that wall he was. But would you agree, Scott, that people have really reacted well to Eddie? I mean, he could have come in here and said, hey, I got 132 Formula One starts. What can you guys teach me? But he has been exactly the opposite.
Even from Phoenix coming out there, he knew that he was at a loss on the ovals. He knew it was going to take some time and that he was a rookie. So it's, you know, it's nothing. It's, you know, all top drivers do, in fact, do that.
There you see his lap speeds. Got consistently faster over the 4 laps and then spoke with Dr. Jerry Punch.
After 11 seasons as a Formula One ace, he makes his debut here at the Brickyard, and a pretty good one. Eddie Cheever, a good qualifying effort, over 217 miles per hour.
We had to do a lot of work. We're running last year's car with the inserts in. It's been very difficult, but the team did a very good job, and they brought me up to speed the right way. One thing I did not want to do is have an argument with one of the walls around here, so I'm glad I didn't. We went through the whole week. It's a lot easier for us, I'd say, the other people with an 89 cars, because we have a Chevy in the back, and a Chevy makes a big difference. It really is an exceptional engine, and it's a lot easier when you have the right engine in the back. I was on the wrong end of that for 5 years in Formula One. Now finally I'm in the right seat with the right engine. But I'm relieved it's over. I mean, to be waiting here for so long and get this qualifying thing over with, it just hangs on you like an axe. And it's just glad to have that axe off my head that we can get down to thinking about the race. Thank you.
Going to be a lot of fun spending time with Eddie Cheever in IndyCars this year. Congratulations to Summer Squall, apparent winner of the Preakness Stakes, and a photo finish with Kentucky Derby winner Unbridled. Mr. Frisky is third. Be interesting to see how that turns out. We're going to come back live to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to keep you updated on progress as we approach happy hour, the fastest time of the day still to come.
Back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway here for qualifications here for the 74th Annual Indianapolis 500. And we're trying to get the field filled here this afternoon for this event. For the 24th consecutive year, the Louis Switzer Award has been given for engineering excellence and innovation. Such names in the past as Andy Granatelli, Mario Ilian, Colin Chapman. A number of people over the years have won it, Bruce McLaren, Dan Gurney, and others. This year it goes to the Simpson Safety Products people, and I'm standing with a couple of the engineers who developed a brand new helmet here for Indianapolis racing and all forms of racing. Mike Held, a University of Akron graduate in mechanical engineering, standing here. Mike, now this is the old helmet they used to use, the old liner, I should say, inside the helmet. If you put your thumb here, you can actually make an indentation in this liner. This brand new liner is called Beadall. I guess you try to press on it, and it has no indentions at all. Therefore, it protects the driver, doesn't transfer the impact.
That's correct. The new material's much more resilient than the old material, and what it does is it allows the driver about 20% more chance of recovery, during an accident.
We've already talked to Johnny Rutherford. He had this helmet on when he hit the wall and therefore only spent the night in the hospital with a little bit of a headache and came out okay, as did Billy Vukovich and others. Now, what we might talk to Timmy Halsmer about, this rather unusual looking helmet he's carrying here is the new development for 1990. It's called the Shark helmet because of the gills on top here. But Timmy, I guess the real development here, you're a University of Purdue graduate from a year ago and took this helmet in the wind tunnel and developed it there. What are you trying to achieve here?
Well, we placed stall strips on the top of the helmet here to change the airflow from smooth over the top of the helmet to turbulent, which destroys the amount of lift that the helmet was producing at speed.
A year ago, Rick Mears told us that going down the back straightaway, wearing the helmet you had last year that didn't have these stall strips on, the helmet wanted to lift off his head. He had a lot of air hitting the front, and the air was speeding over the top, producing lift. And you determined in the wind tunnel that using these stall strips, much like you would have on the side of an airplane wing, you can cause air turbulence on top, therefore minimizing the lift and allowing the helmet to sit down on the head. But something else new for 1990 here by Simpson is this little chin strap. If you'll put that helmet on, Tim, we'll show you. This little device here came as a result of Phil Kruger's accident at Michigan a year ago. It is a spring-loaded, detachable, will turn you to one side here, chin strap. Now, if a driver is in a car and is unconscious after hitting the wall, his head will flop down. It's very difficult for the safety crews to get in here and get to the chin strap and open it or loosen it. They have to try to reach in and cut it. They simply now take this little T-handle here and turn a couple of times, as you saw Mike Hale turn, and you literally just pull down and the chin strap will come off. You can slide the helmet off the driver's head, having access to the airway and maintaining the cervical spine connection here. Certainly that has already been used a half a dozen times this year for Johnny Rutherford, Billy Vukovich, and others to get to the driver very quickly in the car. So all these innovations from Simpson Safety Products, the winners of the 1990 Louis Switzer Award. Gentlemen?
Thank you very much, Jerry. That award, by the way, is presented by the Society of Automotive Engineers. It carries about a $5,000 prize with it. And in case that Halsmer guy looked familiar, yes, he is the brother of IndyCar driver and last year's IMSA Camel GTO champion, Pete Halsmer. Let's take a look now at another of the rookies who has made his way into this year's field, Dean Hall. Now, this is a brand new 1990 Lola. He spent so much time, in fact, he clocked over 1,000 miles in testing. Did Dean Hall in some 88 Lolas, but his team, Dale Coyne, got this new car. He took it out on the racetrack, and it performed wonderfully for him.
He ran very, very strong in qualifying, and it looked very, very good, too. He uses the whole track. For me, when I was a rookie, I was still pretty tentative about using the whole thing out there. It was those walls come up pretty quick, so he's doing a great job.
He has far more laps on the track than anyone else. He has probably been doing a good thing, don't you think, by just going out and logging mile after mile after mile, getting very comfortable out here?
That's the only way to get comfortable out here. The more time you spend in the car, the better you're going to be. And when we were here, that was the biggest thing we were concerned with, was just getting me enough time in the car to get comfortable with the track, because there's so many things to learn about this place. You never do it in 1 year, and the only way to do it as quickly as possible is to spend time on the track.
A lot of open wheel experience. Dean was the 1989 New Zealand Formula Pacific champion. Started out his career as a speed skier. This guy has gone 120 miles an hour on a couple of pieces of fiberglass. I guess IndyCar racing must seem pretty tame after something like that.
You know, interestingly enough, Bob Wallach of IMSA GTP was also a skiing champion and an alternate for the Olympics way back a number of years. So there's a lot of, or at least a few of the race car drivers have come out of skiing.
And great athletes, all of them. Dean Hall in great shape. He logs into the field on the inside of the 9th row. Second fastest, in fact, among the second day qualifiers. I'll give you a look at his 4-lap average. Very consistent laps, and like all the good qualifiers, he gets faster lap after lap. 216.975 the average, and here's what he had to say afterward.
Dean Hall, you said you would make believers out of some of these people. They gave you a chance. They gave you one, and you did.
You know, I don't even know what to say. I'm just ecstatic. My crew's done a great job preparing the Insight Lola, and you know, it's just amazing. We've only been driving the car now. This is the first day. We drove it yesterday, and today's the first day we actually attempted to go fast in it, so it went plenty fast.
You used up the whole racetrack on those laps.
I've been using it up. I didn't want to take any chances. The wind's a little rough out there. It's been buffeting me around in the car around a little bit on the warm-up lap, so I listened to everybody else and kind of decided that since they were going underneath the apron, I was too.
Now, you did it yourself. You went to Japan, sold a sponsorship, came here with a 2-year-old car, and just got this car, the 1990 car, a couple of days ago. Did you have any idea you'd be over 215?
No, we thought, you know, we were going to be happy with a 213, maybe even a 212. We figured would make the show, and as a rookie, that's about all you can ask for here. Our sponsor came to Long Beach for the first time and saw our 88 cars and said that I should have a new one, and here we are in a new car.
And here is a look at Dean Hall in his days as a speed skier. Talk about wild helmets. That looks like something out of Alien. 1,362.5 miles has 32-year-old Dean Hall logged on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The last 10 were the most important. He is in the Indy 500. We'll be right back. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Bob Varsha and Scott Pruitt with you. There is a look at Pancho Carter's car. Pancho already in the field for the 74th Indy 500 inside row number 8. A big favorite from nearby Brownsburg, Indiana. Here is Pancho Carter's qualifying run earlier today on videotape. Pancho, of course, a pole sitter from a few years back. He has had a difficult time getting his car into the field thus far. But this was the magic run for him. Not even getting all 4 wheels down low. This car was handling really well, Scott.
You know, it's really tough to say about the different drivers and different lines. A big part about it today is that the drivers had to use a lot more of the track, even though you're not seeing Pancho here, because of the wind. They had to leave themselves a little extra room for the buffeting. Between the turns, the wind really gets whipping between 1 and 2 and between 3 and 4, and actually pushes the car out significantly. Danny was saying that earlier, that as you enter it, or as you're going between 1 and 2, it'll actually push the front or push the rear, and you have to leave yourself a little bit extra room just in case.
Hard to believe that these incredibly streamlined race cars could be pushed around so much by the breeze. 39-year-old Pancho Carter on the racetrack, son of 11-time Indy 500 starter Dwayne Carter. In fact, Pancho and Michael Andretti are the only second-generation drivers ever to sit on the front row. In 1985, Pancho Carter was on the pole, bumping Scott Brayton out of his Cinderella role as the pole sitter briefly. Pancho's best finish 3rd in 1982.
Strong favorite here in Indianapolis too. The Hardee's people are really behind him. The local community is really behind him, and he's the head of CDA, which is the Car Drivers Association, I should say the head of, but they're representing the drivers, and that is one of the groups that had helped me getting up here and getting all the surgeons together to do all the work.
And there you see the relief in Pancho Carter's pit. I will spit it out any time now. Pancho's one of the guys who would have been really hurt if they had allowed this diffuser issue that boiled up last week. If they had allowed the teams to switch back. His crew chief, John Barnes, said they spent everything they had, as you look at Pancho's 4 laps, spent every nickel they had to buy Pancho a brand new 1990 spec race car. And he did not want to switch back. He's got his 90, and he is in the field for the 500. And I believe Gary Lee has more on Pancho's situation.
Well, of course, Pancho Carter and Johnny Parsons are half-brothers. They had the same mother. Pancho's dad, Dwayne Carter, an 11-time Indy starter, and Johnny's dad, the 1950 Indy winner. This is the T car. This is Pancho's backup Hardee's car. We may, and I underscore may, see Johnny Parsons in this car tomorrow. Johnny has not been on the track all month long, but Ralph Wilkie says they're going to hold this car to make sure that Pancho's run is secure and in the show, and then they may turn this over to Johnny Parsons. Johnny did not have until this afternoon a USAC Gold Crown license, but once the car became possibly available, he took care of that. So hopefully we'll see Johnny Parsons tomorrow on the track. track. On 2 occasions, he's finished 5th in the Indy 500. We're live from Indianapolis. Hopefully some more qualifying coming your way this afternoon.
Winchester, Indiana, second oldest racetrack in the United States in continuous use, second only to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For 76 years, these treacherous high banks have been hosting open-wheeled racing, and tonight, ESPN will take you back to historic Winchester for Saturday Night Thunder, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live here on ESPN. Join Larry Nuber and Steve Chassie with news of the day from the Speedway and some great racing from Winchester. In fact, that was the site of ESPN's first auto racing broadcast. There you see the windsock. It has calmed down some. It's been up and down all day. The wind has threatened to rip the flags right off the standards at one point. We're back on videotape now for Teo Fabi, who had so much trouble last Sunday. Blew the engine in his car, then got into the backup Porsche. Couldn't make that car work either. His teammate John Andretti got into the field as a first-round qualifier. Teo had to take his shot in the second round, and he got it done. 220.653 his second lap. You saw the average, 228.033 at the end of the back straightaway.
For those of you who hadn't joined us last week, this is by far, or the Porsches are by far the smallest cars in the field. They're significantly smaller than last year's cars and smaller than the new Lotus that just came out.
Teo Fabi, of course, brought Porsche its first IndyCar victory last year at Mid-Ohio. A very small Italian, sat on this on the front row for the Indy 500 back in 1983 when the first weekend was washed out. Last rookie to sit on the pole, in fact. He and teammate John Andretti are both about 5'3", weigh about 140 pounds maybe, as you take a look there at Teo. They're about the only guys in this racetrack, maybe the only guys in racing period, who can get into these cars. I think all the jockeys are busy at Pimlico today. So they were just flat out of people to get in these cars if anything should happen to John or Teo.
For the next few years, you're going to see that more teams are going to build their own cars, and just like we're building our car for next year, it's actually built for my size, my shoulder width, my height, and my weight, and that's exactly how these cars were built for these drivers.
Gives you a certain measure of job security, I guess, knowing the car's been designed around you, huh?
Makes you feel pretty good.
And certainly Teo Fabi felt a whole lot better after finishing his qualifying run. It got him solidly into the field. We'll give you a look at his 4-lap average, 220.022, fastest of all the second-round qualifiers today. And that will put him on the outside of row number 8. Big day for Porsche. Certainly Teo Fabi relieved. There's a look at the 92-pound sterling silver Borg Warner trophy. The winner of the race gets his face on that trophy, and he gets a smaller replica worth about $25,000. Here is a look at the starting grid. If you're looking live, Emerson Fittipaldi is the confirmed pole sitter for this year's 500, next to Rick Mears and Ari Leyendyke. Row 2, Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti, and Mario Andretti. Row 3 will be Al Unser Jr., A.J. Foyt with a great run today, and Danny Sullivan. Row 4, John Andretti in the first of the non-Chevys. That's the Porsche, with Dominic Dobson and a Cosworth, and Randy Lewis filling out that row. Row 5, Tony Bettenhausen next to rookie Eddie Cheever and Kevin Kogan. Row 6 will be Tero Palm-Roth. It's been a good year for Finnish race drivers. I'll have more on that later. Raul Boesel and Gary Bettenhausen fill out row 6. On row 7, Jeff Brabham, Didier Taze, and Scott Goodyear. On row 8, Pancho Carter, Mike Groff, and Teo Fabi, whom you just saw qualify. Row 9, Dean Hall, another rookie, next to Tom Sneva, former winner, and Scott Brayton. Row 10, Roberto Guerrero, Al Unser, as the Alphas have finally gotten into the field. Jeff Andretti on row 10. And the last remaining qualifier to this point, Johnny Rutherford. Let's go down now to Gary Lee in the pit lane. I beg your pardon, Jerry Punch.
Well, the car you're looking at is actually a T car, 12T, that belongs to Randy Lewis, who qualified his primary car, the former PC-17 Danny Sullivan car, like the one you're seeing now, in the 12th starting spot. Now, Randy Lewis standing with me. Randy, the fastest Buick in the field, and also the fastest non-1990 model car in the field. Randy, your effort at over 218.4 miles per hour, a great effort for you. Now you're out here with a backup car. You just trying to shake it down?
Well, we are. We've got it out here for 2 reasons. We were talking about Rich earlier, you know, and I guess he's racing tonight. He may end up driving this and qualifying it today. The crew's trying to decide because this is my backup car, and obviously if anything happens to my primary car, I don't want to miss the race. But we'd also like to see Rich in the race. So I'm out here for 2 reasons. I'm out here myself because if the wind dies down, the setup that I qualified with was worked out okay for the day, but it wasn't a very comfortable car to drive for 500 miles. So we didn't have time to really try a bunch of stuff during the week. So we're trying a race setup now on this car so that I can apply it to my qualified car, maybe for the race.
Well, when you mention Rich, we're talking about Rich Vogler, a two-time USAC sprint car champion who is on his way, by the way, to Winchester, Indiana for sprint car racing tonight, which you'll be able to see on ESPN. And, of course, what a teammate. I mean, his car was hurt in an accident earlier today, and now he doesn't have a car to drive. He's on his way to run a short track race, and you're out here shaking down the car that he may qualify tomorrow.
You never know. Yeah, he's had a little bad luck this month, as you know. Of course, he damaged the car last Sunday when he was going for a really fine run. And today I think he would have easily made the show without a doubt. He did some good times this morning, so hope he has a little better luck at this race tonight, and hopefully he'll get this thing in the show as well.
Some proud people here in RCR racing the Jonathan Hall racing efforts. Randy Lewis starting 12th thus far in qualifying here in a PC-17. Bob?
Thank you, Jerry. Apologize for getting your name wrong. In fact, it has been a very tough week at Indianapolis for Rich Vogler. He crashed at the end of qualifying last week, and he crashed again today, as you have just heard. And it was a bit of a controversy. Now, another open-wheel day, Stan Fox was the man just ahead of Rich Vogler in the line. This is earlier today on videotape. At about 12:20, Stan blew the engine in his race car. He is down in the turn 3 area. You see all of the smoke. He quickly got it down low, but he was well into turn 3 on the groove there. Now, was there a question of whether any oil or other fluids were laid down? Hard to say. But 5 minutes later, the next man out was Rich Vogler. And in that same corner, right across that line, suddenly the front end just washed out. The car drove straight off of the groove and hard into the turn 3 wall. Now, Rich Vogler climbed out of this, a very disgusted man, and rightfully so. The car skidded for a great distance before coming to a stop, but that is the second car that he has ripped up. And as you heard just a moment ago from Randy Lewis, Rich Vogler may still have a chance at getting into this field, as he has for the last 2 years in borrowed race cars. Lots more to come from Indy. Stay with us.
Back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and there are already a lot of deals being cut here on pit road to try to get cars in the field here. We still have one more day of qualifying tomorrow, which you'll be able to see on ESPN. But right now, the car that I'm leaning against is going to be driven by Rocky Moran, the Gore Racing Machine. Now, Galen Fox, the team manager and crew chief, told me a minute ago that earlier in the week they couldn't get the car up to speed. They had the old long stroke Cosworth. So John Menard came to the rescue. Menard, another car owner that's had a little tough luck himself with the Jim Crawford cars here this month, said, well, hey, I'll give you a Buick. We know how strong the Buick motors are. You redesign the 89 Lola for the Buick engine to fit, and I guarantee you'll have a better shot at making the fields. That's what they did. They redesigned the car. They have Buick power now, but in exchange, Menard has his name on the side of the car, and one of Menard's sponsors, Glidden Paints, now on the side of the 89 Lola for Rocky Moran, trying to get in the field here at Indianapolis. So deals being made all up and down pit road to make the start for the 74th annual Indy 500. Bob?
Thank you, Jerry. We're in a caution situation right now as you see one of the pace cars on the track doing a track inspection. A lot of debris getting blown out there. Billy Vukovic III, you see his car going through inspection. They do this with lasers and computer printouts, and they can do it in about 3 minutes per car. They said their fastest last Sunday was 2 minutes and 24 seconds. It used to take about 10 minutes with strings and rulers and plumb lines for the United States Auto Club to get these cars inspected before they sent them out on the racetrack. But a company called Race Spec has developed this computer and laser operated device. They call it the Qualifier, and you'll probably see it in a lot of races in the future, particularly on the IndyCar trail. Scott, you mentioned in the end of happy hour, we're going to see a lot of deals being made as guys really get a feel for how their cars are set up.
Right now, the people are waiting, or the drivers are waiting, or I should say the teams are waiting for the wind to really calm down. They're waiting for the last possible minute to go out there onto the track. They know that the wind's a big factor here today. They have a real strong headwind going down the front straight, and they're waiting for the last possible instant, because generally the wind does calm down close to 6 o'clock or from 5:30 on.
There you see some of the various measurements being made to the car. Heights, widths, weight of the car. Incredibly close tolerances, and they do it very quickly. Now, another of the cars that might be in demand as a possible race entry would be the backup machine to this guy, Scott Brayton. A week ago, they suffered the embarrassment of waving off their qualifying run for the pole accidentally. His crew chief forgot to wave the green flag, indicating that they were taking their run. It was academic. Everybody assumes you're taking your run when you're going for the pole and you only have one shot at it, but they didn't wave the flag. Scott Brayton was surprised to see the caution lights come out. He pulled off the racetrack. But he got out there today, and averaged 215.716 for 2 laps. Once again, up in the left-hand corner, his terminal velocity on the backstretch. With the help of about a 30-mile-an-hour wind today, there is his speed exiting turn 3. You can see just how much he scrubbed off, and that's high. He dropped about 8 miles an hour, and that's more than we expected.
And as we see there, 228 with Cheever and Mateo, and 222 with the Cosworth. So there's significant horsepower difference. All our chassis setup difference between those two cars.
Rumor has it that Cosworth is coming back with an all-new engine in 1991, not a derivation of one of their earlier engines. They are going all out to produce an all-new V8 for IndyCar racing. So we haven't seen the last of Cosworth, what with all the success that Chevrolet has had.
They started with a clean piece of paper, and right now they're actually looking for a car company to get behind that program. Somebody to put their name on it.
In fact, your crew chief, Steve Horn, with the True Sports team, says you can expect an explosion in entries in the engine department as more and more manufacturers get attuned to coming into Indianapolis. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Japanese, Nissan and Toyota perhaps, coming to Indianapolis in the near future. Scotty Brayton polishing off a good qualifying run. He wound up outside row 9. And his backup car is a possibility. There was a word, as Jerry mentioned earlier, that it might go to the Stubstein for Johnny Rutherford. It is a proven quick machine as you take a look at Scott Brayton's 4-lap average. We may see somebody in a car that Scott Brayton has been driving thus far this weekend. Jerry talked to him.
Scott Brayton getting a qualifying lap in over 215.028 miles per hour average. Scotty, I know you'd hope to run quicker, but you get to take that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, because it hurt me coming off and through the short chutes, and that's why the speed just fell down, and the car consistently kept picking up a push, and that scrubbed speed on the exit, and so I just couldn't go any faster.
People may not realize that a little push can make a big difference. That last lap almost 3 miles an hour slower.
Yeah, that's because I had to really haul her down in there to get it, keep it from sliding out on the exit. And I think if you watch the run, you could see that, you know, over in 2, I really had to bring her down a lot harder than I wanted to. And I was trying to let it out at the exit, but it just wasn't working good. We're in, and I'm happy.
Pushing is the worst thing that can happen. It's when the car doesn't want to turn, it takes you all the way out to the walls. And in Indianapolis, that is not where you want to be. Let's take a look at the summaries as far as the engines are concerned. 10 Chevy Indy V8s are now in the field. They, of course, powered last year's winner, Emerson Fittipaldi. 8 Cosworth, 6 Buick engines. In fact, a Buick won the very first car race ever held here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway back in 1911. 3 Judds based on a Honda power plant, 2 Porsche engines, and 2 Alfa Romeos finally into the field. The chassis summary, 12 Lolas, 3 1990 Penske's, 4 Marches, 6 Lolas from 1989, and a gathering of old Penske cars, as well as 1 1988 Lola. There are still 2 more places in the field. We'll return to see how Vukovic does in a moment. ESPN Speed World live coverage of the time trials for the 74th Indy 500 is being brought to you by BMW Motorcycles, worth the obsession. By Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, who want you to know that May is Better Your Home Month. And by Busch Beer, the beer with a taste as smooth as its name. Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where a crowd that reached about 75,000 has now frittered down to a handful, maybe 5,000 or 6,000. Good enough for a nice short track race, but they can get lost in the vast expanse of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Billy Vukovic III, the only 3rd-generation driver here at the Speedway, is on the racetrack right now. We anticipate he's going to try a 4-lap attempt. Slowest average speeds thus far, Mike Groff, one of the rookies, at 203.643 miles an hour. Johnny Rutherford, who has really had his problems qualifying the last few years, 204.801. Jeff Andretti, 210.268. They are the first 3 that will be on the bubble once this field is complete, pending what happens to the last 2 qualifiers. Now, just about any speed that Billy Vukovic gets on this run will put him in the field, because we still have 2 spots open, but he's going to want to get the fastest one he possibly can to avoid getting bumped.
Billy was running very, very good in practice, running some 218, 219 laps with the Buick, and then had that unfortunate incident. So he's coming back now. He's trying to get it back together. Ran pretty well this morning. Now he's back on the track. Hopefully get a good run in now.
He certainly comes from great roots. His grandfather was killed in an accident here while leading the race in 1955 en route to a possible third straight victory in the 500. His father works for Simpton Safety Products, who have picked up the Schweitzer Award this weekend for their new driver helmet. His father also raced many times here at Indy. His best finish 60 in 1973, and his father makes no bones about it. He says the old girl, meaning the Speedway, owes us one. Billy's the guy going out. A super modified champion from the West Coast. He crashed May 7th, going into a corner a little bit too hot. There is his mom looking on. He returned just 2 days ago, and he is now out on the racetrack once again. He has lapped at about 218 miles an hour, and he has 2 previous 500s behind him. So he is ripping along. First lap, 2:12.024. Good speed at the end of the back straight, 2:25.768. We'll see his exit speed from turn 3 to see how much he's scrubbing off. 195. Boy, he is really scrubbing a lot of speed. That's not a good sign. Let's see how much torque he has, see how quickly he can get back up to a speed of about 225 perhaps. And there is his father, Big Bill Vukovich.
Their whole family is really good people. Bill works for Simpson and really takes care of you, trying to get you the product you need and when you need it. And also Billy, I spent some time with him out at the meetings, the winter meetings for kart, and I had this first opportunity that I did. And he's a great kid. Had a lot of fun.
A bit more speed this time down the back stretch. In fact, father and son, Bill and Billy, were guests on Motor Week Illustrated a couple of months ago. Still scrubbing off an awful lot of speed. 227 down to 201, 26 miles an hour speed lost in that corner. I think that's the biggest gap we've seen all day. White flag is out. He has 1 lap to go. This is it. It's on the line for Billy Vukovich III. His mom looks on, willing her boy along. Ooh, he had a little bobble as he got close to the wall there in the short chute.
He'll take this for sure. He's had good, strong speed. He knows, there's 3 or 4 people below him right now, and it's just playing it safe, making sure he can get in, not going to gamble with trying to go tomorrow.
If he maintains that average of 211, he will be the 4th slowest in the field, but he will be in the field because there's a spot open for him. Once again, scrubbing off a lot in the corner. Is that because the car slides, or what makes you lose speed in a corner?
There's a number of things. It could be just the grip of the car itself, where you have to back out of the throttle. It could be the fact that the car's pushing. You can really scrub a lot of speed. See his mother there real happy. His father's there very, very happy, very, very pleased.
And 2 very different reactions. She's clapping and smiling, and he just looks relieved. He can finally let his breath out after about 2 minutes and 39 seconds of going around. Dr. Jerry Punch is standing by with the parents as we watch Billy's times, 2:12, 2:11, 2:11, 2:11, 2:11.389 miles an hour. That will put him outside row 10 provisionally. Let's get down now to Jerry Punch.
Well, you mentioned he might be able to take a breath. How about mom, Joyce Vukovich here? And you've been around the Brickyard a number of years. Your husband, of course, Bill, finished 2nd and 3rd here in the Indy 500, but it doesn't get any easier when it's your son out there.
No, absolutely not. I'm petrified.
He did a great job, though.
Yeah, I'm glad it's over with. Hard day, real hard.
I didn't realize you could hold your breath for 4 consecutive laps here, but we didn't see you move at all.
I don't know if I breathed or not. I don't know. I'm too nervous.
Joyce Vukovich, the happy mother. Billy III coming down pit road, and momentarily we'll try to get a comment with him. Qualifying, it's their backup car. Remember, they destroyed the primary car that Ron Hemmelgarn had hearing for at Indianapolis, and certainly a good speed for him, an average speed of 211.389 miles per hour.
Thank you, Jerry. In fact, Ron Hemmelgarn has had to find new cars both for Billy Vukovich and for his teammate, Buddy Lazier, but they are both trying, and now Billy is in. Take a look at some neat-looking pirouette. That was Jim Crawford's tire tracks. After his 3rd big event of the weekend, he has crashed twice, one of them big time, and earlier today he spun there out of turn 2. Here's a look at how it happened. He got below the line. What happened here, Scott?
Well, as you see, he's coming down here and got way down low, and it looked like the car just pushed up, got away from him from the rear, and spun around. It's been a hard luck month for him, period. It's he had that horrible crash earlier last week, and this, it's just been just a tough month.
He has been asked, as you see Billy Vukovich there, he'll get his helmet off and stand for all the publicity pictures, and we'll come back and talk with him when we return Jim Crawford says he will also be back to the Speedway. Stay with us.
Billy Vukovich has climbed out of his 88 Lola Buick Power here machine. And Billy, 211.3, not what you wanted, but a pretty good run to get you in the field.
Well, gets us in for now. I don't know how long that'll stay in. Just depends on how everybody else runs, I guess.
You guys have been out practicing back and forth. You'd run up to over 212 a little bit ago. Any difference in the car for the qualifying run?
Well, we went out and tried to make that one attempt, and it pushed real bad, and we made a change, and then we went out and it was loose, and then we made another change back and it wasn't too bad, so we decided to go and try to qualify, and that's about it. That's about all I could do with it.
Now you sit back and hope.
Sit back and pray for rain.
You'll rarely hear a driver want to pray for rain, but here's one who is, because it may keep him in the field here in 1990. Bob?
Well, congratulations to Billy Vukovich, 32nd starter in the field. There is a look at the absolutely spectacular Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. For $1, you can get in there and get a look at all the great race cars of the past here at the Indy 500. And even some that didn't run here at Indy. Al Holbert's old Porsche 962 is in there, along with a lot of other great machines. It's worth your while if you ever come to Indianapolis. Coming up tonight, live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Speed Week. Bob Jenkins will move over from the radio booth to get you updated on all of the events in racing this week. And at 9 tonight, remember, Saturday Night Thunder, live from the high banks of Winchester, Indiana. And tomorrow, we'll be back at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Bubble Day, live here on ESPN. We've already talked about some of the cars that may be up there for the highest bidder. And it should be a great day as we solidify the 33 cars in the field. Now we are under green flag practice conditions, make it yellow flag practice conditions now. Jim Crawford is out there on the racetrack. This yellow flag we have may indicate somebody's going to try a qualifying run, but I don't see anybody going through tech inspection. You're watching live, but we'll take you now to videotape to get a look at the qualifying run from a past Indy winner. This is Tom Sneva, who waved off a couple of times. I shouldn't say waved off, who aborted runs before having to wave one way or the other, as he couldn't get his Buick up to speed in the Granatelli car. But once he got out there, Tom Sneva went after him. The first man to surpass 200 miles an hour in qualifying at Indianapolis.
Again, as you see him using all the track, the wind has really been a factor all day long here. They're having to take it all the way down to the bottom of the track, almost into the grass, in order to have enough room, just in case that they wouldn't lose him around quite a bit.
41-year-old Tom Sneva from Paradise Valley, California, 1989 Penske Buick. The surprise first day fast man here at the Speedway way back on the 5th of May, 215.646 miles an hour. That was a first day record here at the Speedway. Back in 1977, he was the first man to average 200 miles an hour. He won the race in 1983 in what was Al Unser Jr.'s first race at the Speedway, as I recall. Remember, his dad, Al Sr., was in the lead, and Al Unser blocked for all he was worth, trying to keep Sneva behind his old man. But
what
Sneva
a controversy that was.
Oh, boy, and it was great. Al got out of the car. They asked him if he was blocking. He said, sure I was. But Tom Sneva got through and won his Indy crown. His face is on the Borg Warner Trophy. And this was the end of his 4-lap run earlier in the day. You see his crew chief looking on. And they know they're in the field. Hard to state just how much pressure these drivers and teams are under. And certainly all the rain we've had here at the Speedway hasn't helped things at all. They couldn't even park cars on the infield for a few days because things got so wet. When I left here last Tuesday, it was raining at the airport. It rained Tuesday and Wednesday. There you see Tom Sneva's qualifying average of 216.142 miles an hour. You'll see just how relieved he is in his interview.
Tom Sneva qualifying in the field. And Tom, I know you would like to have run quicker, but you have to take this one, 216.142.
Yeah, you know, we went out the first time and had a little motor problem, so we ended up being a second-day qualifier, and we just wanted to make sure we get 4 laps in. The car feels good. You know, it's driving real good. We just, you know, need to tune her up for race day and put a lot of fuel in her and then see what happens.
If the weather weren't a threat, would you have possibly waited for tomorrow and had some time with the car?
Well, you know, the car was going about as fast as it could with the motor and the power we had in it. So, you know, we're happy with where we're at. It's not quite as quick as some of them, but, you know, 500 miles is a long ways for that RCA car.
Tom Sneva, he won it all here in '83.
And there you see Stan Fox's car. He blew the engine in one of his machines earlier in the day, but we're getting very close to the last half hour Scott talked about earlier. It is happy hour right now at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Stay with us. You're looking live at one of the most famous camera perspectives in all of motorsports. The pit lane at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the world-famous scoring pylon right down there at the bottom. The number 33 spot remains black. One more space to get into the Indy 500 for 1990. Bob Varsha and last year's co-rookie of the year, Scott Pruitt, with you. Scott, if you are a car owner, as you take a look at Al Unser Sr. taking his Alfa Romeo onto the racetrack earlier today, do you go out right now and try to qualify your car, or do you wait?
You wait till the last minute. It's a real crapshoot. It's a real gamble. Do you take the chance now on getting in the field, or do you wait till the last minute? You don't really want to take the chance on waiting for tomorrow. A lot of the people are in the field now. It's nice and steady for those guys. But now you want to get, you just want to get in the field. People aren't worried about speed. They just want to get in enough to get in the field, not how fast they can go, but just enough to get in.
Recall earlier this weekend, excuse me, actually it was last Monday, that the Alfa team suffered their biggest setback thus far when Roberto Guerrero lost the rear wing off his car and pummeled the wall. That was an identical car to this one. Al Unser Sr. was pulled off the racetrack to check his rear wing. Turns out the posts that hold up the wings had been improperly manufactured. They weren't glued together properly. And they were really glad they caught that, obviously. Not as glad as the drivers were. But they have been building up, and Al Unser Sr. took the car out today for a qualifying run, average 212, 179 for lap 3, 211 for his overall 3-lap average. I wonder what goes through a driver's mind, Scott, when you come down into a turn, get right out to that wall, and those great big ugly tire marks of someone's previous crash goes by at eye level.
I'll tell you, during the month of May, as there's more incidents, those are really disheartening. You see those big black marks, and it really wakes you up.
Al Unser Jr., Big Al's son, standing by as Dad tries to get into his 25th Indy 500.
It's been quite a challenge for the Patrick team, being on top last year, winning the championship, winning the 500. They have quite a challenge now with the Alfa Romeo team. As you see, their average speed 212 for Al Unser Sr. and it's quite a change for him.
212.087. Al Unser Sr. is in the field for his 25th race, despite all those 25 starts, despite the fact that, as you look live once again, despite all the starts for A.J. Foyt, Johnny Rutherford, Al Unser Sr. and Mario, of that group, Big Al and Mario have finished together only once in the same top 5 here at Indianapolis. Mario and A.J. have finished together only once in the same top 5. That was last year. Gary Lee has a comment for the pit lane.
Well, you guys were talking about watching the tire marks at eye level. The Speedway has a policy that after each day of practice, if there are tire marks from an altercation, they're painted over. So the next day, they're gone.
And there are Rich Vogler's tire marks. God, it's violent just looking at the tires leading up to the wall and then the crash.
It scares me sitting here looking at him.
There you see Tony Bettenhausen out on the racetrack. Boy, have they had a great week at Indianapolis. Sons of the great Tony Bettenhausen, the 2-time national champion who was killed in an accident here 29 years ago. 29 years and 1 day later, his 2 sons got into this race. Once again, back with the Alfa team. This is Roberto Guerrero, Al Unser Sr.'s teammate in the new Alfa program. Wife Katie looking on.
What a real nice couple, too. Katie and Roberto, very, very good couple. Very, very kind, very courteous. And he's had some real tough breaks. Had that unfortunate incident here a number of years ago, and he's come back strong. And again, it's tough for him sometimes to get out there, and it's quite a challenge with the Alfa Romeo team. But as anything in their infancy, it just takes time. I mean, it's Chevrolet. It took them a number of years to get up and get going to speed, and you'll see the same thing with Alfa.
As you see, he scrubbed off about 10 miles an hour in the turn that time. That's lower than some, but certainly not what you're looking for. You only want to lose about 2 to 3 miles an hour if you can help it. Katie clicks the watch at the end of lap 1. She's very active in a program to develop full-time daycare for IndyCar families, both here and out on the championship auto racing teams tour. The incident Scott was referring to a moment ago, of course, came in 1987 when Roberto had a testing crash in the fall here at Indianapolis, was hit on the head by a tire and wheel. He was in a coma for some time, but has come back strong and has a great ride now. His first 4 years here at the Indy 500, Roberto had to have had the best first 4 years of anybody in history. He finished second, third, fourth, and second in his first 4 starts. And that fourth one, of course, he was leading the race, stalled the car on his pit stop. Al Unser Sr. swept by, won his 4th Indy 500. And Guerrero says Al likes to show him his victor's ring from that race and tells him thanks a lot for the ring all the time.
That's a tough act to bear.
But now they are teammates, and you can bet that if he has anything to do with it, Roberto Guerrero is going to win his Indy 500 before too very long. Here is his qualifying average, 212.652 miles an hour. And when he talked with Jerry Punch afterwards, he too was a relieved man.
Well, for this young 31-year-old driver, it's been a difficult month, but Roberto coming back after losing the primary car to have a pretty good qualifying run, you got to feel good about it.
Yeah, we have to say we're really happy that Alfa Romeo is back in Indianapolis. You know, it was 40 years since they were last in there, and now the race is a different story. We'll just have to try and do a little bit better in the race.
You had to scramble a little bit to get the T car up to speed, but 212 plus, not a bad effort for you.
Yeah, it was. You're always disappointed with whatever you get. I mean, I was obviously started a little bit better, and then the car picked up a little bit of an understeer that kept bringing the average down a little bit. But hopefully we're in safe in the race, and we'll just see how it goes in the race.
Well, our crack research team has just pointed out to me that there is a better first 4 years at Indianapolis. In the late 40s, Bill Holland finished second, first, and second. I still like Roberto Guerrero. When we come back, we'll take a look at one of the greats here at Indianapolis. Stay with us. Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the first event back in 1909 had nothing to do with motorsports. It was a hot air balloon ascension. But Indianapolis has come a long way since then, and so has the Speedway, the most famous racing plant in all the world. And a week from tomorrow, the 74th running of the Indianapolis 500 will honor its winner with a first prize in excess of $1 million. We are now under yellow conditions. We expect in the last 27 minutes remaining to us as you look live at the Speedway that we will have some more qualifying attempts. We've already seen Johnny Rutherford and Al Unser Sr., 2 of the great winners in Indianapolis 500 history. One of their car owners along the way was a very interesting individual, Jim Hall, who hasn't been seen in these parts in some time. Here's an update on Jim Hall and his Indy history. A chaparral is a desert bird and the name of an historic line of race cars designed by Texas visionary Jim Hall.
I'm not a very good follower. I'd like to pursue what I think is a logical, scientific answer to the problem that you face. And rather than just copy what's being done, I'd rather take a kind of a clean sheet of paper and see if there's not a better way to do it. It's better, simpler, and better and simpler sometimes are very close to the same thing. Finally came with solutions that were really quite good in some areas, particularly aerodynamics. We did some good work in the monocoque structures early, and of course the automatic transmission. So we had 3 areas that were really quite original with us in racing, and I guess my most lasting innovation or ideas are in the aerodynamic department. When we took a car from positive lift to negative lift, or download, the lap times just dropped dramatically. I mean, not tenths of seconds, but half seconds and seconds. And we knew immediately that there was a major breakthrough. And I think that's a direct result of the way we used the wing in the 60s. We used it in a little different way than it had ever been used. It's certainly not the first time a wing had been put on a race car, but we used it in a little different way. We used it to enhance the controllability of the car. Not only the capability, but the controllability. And that had a completely lasting effect in every race car today that can have the wing to give the driver that feel, the balance, the aerodynamic balance that he needs in his race car. I haven't been particularly interested in round track racing over my years because I felt like that road racing took a more complete vehicle and it was a little broader form, and it was just something I wanted to be involved in. But I made up my mind at that point that since I hadn't done it, I wanted to put together an Indy race team and go there. And it just turned out I was fortunate enough to be able to hire Al that year, So there I was, first year at Indianapolis, rookie with really the capabilities of winning a race. Well, we won it the first year, but we continued to run it for 3 years. And of course, I built a car specifically for Indy racing for the '79 season, and it was successful in winning the national championship in the race in 1980. And I have to say that it's one of my memorable experiences.
The stunning success of the Chaparral in its Indianapolis debut was followed 2 years later by one of the great matchups in Indy history. Texan Jim Hall, the Chaparral, and Lone Star Jr., Johnny Rutherford. The Chaparral dominated the 500, leading 119 of 200 laps and earning Rutherford his third victory at the Speedway. But for Hall, it was the beginning of the end.
Since racing became big business, I was spending more time being businessman than designer. And that's really not my forte, probably. I don't enjoy it as much, but it's a necessary part of it. So by choice, I'm not racing, and I'm enjoying it. It doesn't mean that I'm through. It just means that right now I'm doing something else.
And the something else that Jim Hall is doing is restoring those classic race cars down in his home in Midland, Texas. We may see him back. There is Buddy Lazier, who is going through the laser-actuated tech process. We may see him yet on the racetrack. We have one space left in the field for the Indy 500. Back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 5 rookies thus far have qualified with one space remaining in the field for the 74th 500. Eddie Cheever leading the way at 217.926 miles an hour, about 1 mile an hour faster than Dean Hall. Scott Goodyear was the first of the rookies to make the field last Sunday. Jeff Andretti came back from a crash to qualify. Mike Groff is there, and Buddy Lazier is going through tech right now. We anticipate a qualifying attempt from him before we sign off at 6 o'clock. Let's take a look at the grid as it exists right now. 32 cars are in. Emerson Fittipaldi and Rick Mears, Penske teammates, with Ari Leyendijk across the front row. Rahal, Andretti, and Andretti in row 2. Row 3 will be Al Unser Jr. next to A.J. Foyt in his 33rd start, and 85 winner Danny Sullivan. John Andretti, Dominic Dobson, and Randy Lewis are in row 4. Row 5 will be Tony Bettenhausen, Eddie Cheever, the best of the rookies, next to Kevin Kogan. Row 6, Tero Palmroth of Finland, Raul Boesel, and Gary Bettenhausen. Row 7 will be Jeff Brabham, Didier Tays, and rookie Scott Goodyear. Row 8, Pancho Carter, rookie Mike Groff, and Teo Fabi in the Porsche. Row 9 will be Dean Hall, Tom Sneva, and Scott Brayton. Row 10 is Roberto Guerrero and Al Unser in the Alphas, and Billy Vukovic now in the field. Row 11, Jeff Andretti and Johnny Rutherford. The bumping will begin with Groff. Rutherford, the next most vulnerable driver. We'll take a quick timeout, and when we come back, this man, 22-year-old Buddy Lazier, will take another shot at it. At Indianapolis, but at Charlotte Motor Speedway, qualifying results from the Winston show Dale Earnhardt right up front. Davey Allison, Darrell Waltrip, Mark Martin, and Morgan Shepherd follow. Chevys and Fords filling up the top 5 positions. That should be a good race tomorrow. But we will be here at Indianapolis, and this man, Buddy Lazier, I was going to say, is about to climb into his race car and head out for a qualifying attempt. He is a rookie. He has never driven an Indy car anywhere except at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. At age 22, by far the youngest driver attempting to make the field. His dad drove here, Bob Lazier. He also won at Daytona in the 24 hours, did his dad, driving with Amos Johnson in the GTU class in IMSA competition. But before he goes out, now here is a look at Tero Palmroth of Finland and his qualifying attempt earlier today. I mentioned at the top of our show, it's been a great year for Finnish drivers. Robert Lappalainen won the Trans Am race on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona, seen here on ESPN. And a couple of young Finns, Mika Salo and Mika Hakkinen, are tearing up British Formula 3 racing on the road to a Formula 1 drive, where J.J. Leto, a Finn, is following in the footsteps of world champion Keke Rosberg. There you saw his second lap time. Tero Palmroth, trying for his 3rd Indy 500 start, says he's still in the education process, bringing the folks in Finland up to speed on the Indy 500.
It's tough for drivers, especially when you're trying to get used to things. Only driving here once a year. There's no opportunity, for him to come, or he hasn't taken the opportunity to come and race in other races. He just takes the 500 to race. So it's there's a lot to learn when you come here with a new car. With the team that he didn't get to spend a lot of time with, and qualify as well as he has.
Tero Palmroth, there you see his speed. He drives for the Dick Simon Racing team, as does Scott Brayton. And that's one of the teams that we expect may have a backup car for someone to get into tomorrow during Bubble Day and try to knock their way into this field. Rain was suspected today. In fact, 70% chance of rain, we were told. It has not rained. Looks like it won't in the 17 minutes remaining to us here before they close the racetrack. The last time it rained on the final day of qualifications for the 500, which would be tomorrow, was 1984. So be sure to be with us. If it hasn't rained today, hopefully it won't tomorrow, and we'll see some great performances and great drama. 217.423 miles an hour, the 4-lap average for Taro Palmroth, who finds himself inside row 6. Now we're back live, and Buddy Lazier is on the racetrack.
A lot of pressure going through his mind. It's getting down to the finish. You know, he has to get in the field. You know, this is tough for a rookie. He's never been this far before. You know, he's getting really close to the cutoff point. So there's a lot of pressure on him to go out and perform right now, to break that 2:03 speed of Groff.
He crashed on the 3rd day the track was open back on the 7th of May while he was warming up for a run. He wasn't going all that fast, about 160 miles an hour. They think it was some mechanical malfunction that put him into the wall. This car was bought from Frank Archiero's racing team before the opening of the track. He returned, as did Billy Vukovic, just a couple of days ago, and Buddy Lazier is trying once again to get into the field. Last year he tried. He crashed on the last day of qualifying and couldn't make an attempt at all. So he is really under some pressure. The 1988 American Racing Series champion, Buddy Lazier from Vail, Colorado.
The wind's lightening up some, but not a lot. It's still pretty significant as he heads down the front straight. Comes down for the green, and he's off, and there he goes.
He will take it. If he makes it, we will have a full 33-car field. And a quick look over at the qualifying line shows that Jim Crawford is going to make another attempt. Boy, after the week he's had, don't go away, folks. You don't want to go away if Jim Crawford's going to take to the speedway. Stan Fox is also in line with an 87 Lola Buick, the oldest car to attempt to qualify here. 221.370 at the end of the backstretch for Buddy Lazier. 203, so he scrubbed off 24 miles an hour. The most rookies ever to make an Indy 500 field back in 1919 was, appropriately enough, 19. The fewest was 1. That happened twice, in 1939 and 1979.
Starting on his second lap right now. It should be interesting to see what his first lap is.
208.943. That will comfortably put him into the field.
He just has to keep it up now. It's 4 laps tied together. It's not the quickest speed. It's all 4-lap total. So even if you do make a little mistake, you have to keep going. You have to put that mistake behind you and concentrate on those laps ahead.
His average thus far would be 3rd slowest after Mike Groff and Johnny Rutherford, but he will be in the field. And if it rains tomorrow, that would be all she wrote. Predictions of rain all the way through next Tuesday. Of course, after tomorrow, it's academic. Once the cars are in the field and the field is declared official, there will be no running of these race cars until Carburation Day on Thursday. Of course, that's one of the great misnomers in all of sports. There are no carburetors at Indianapolis anymore. I don't think there's one on the infield in any of these parked cars. They're all fuel injected.
I'll guarantee you, this man, if he gets into the field, is going to be hoping for rain tomorrow.
The white flag comes out. He will have 1 lap remaining. We are down to the last 13 minutes of happy hour. The last 13 minutes on the 3rd day of qualifying for the 74th Indianapolis 500. 210.640 miles an hour, lap 3, so he ups his qualifying average to 209.4. And that gets him very close to the next fastest guy in the field, Jeff Andretti, at 210.268. So if Buddy Lazier can keep his foot in it, he can put another man between himself and possibly being bumped tomorrow.
Here he comes down for the checkered.
And a happy crew. What a release for these guys.
Especially after last year, having a problem. They did crashing last year, and you know, it's really discouraging as a driver when you have to back out. So it's really pleased to see them in.
His 4-lap average, 209.418, so he is comfortably in the field, and we are at a full 33. We'll be back to Indianapolis in a moment. Back live at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where Jim Crawford is on the racetrack, and because we now have a 33-car complete field, we have begun the bumping process. After 2 crashes and a lurid spin, Jim Crawford just has to have nerves of ice and steel, I would think, to drive at speeds of 220 miles an hour around this racetrack.
After the tough luck he's had this month, it's probably a lot of things going through his mind right now. He wants to get into the field. He wants to play conservative because, I mean, this is one of the last chances he has, one of the last opportunities.
From Scotland, Jim Crawford has led this race before. Led about 6 laps a couple of years ago. There is the speed he is shooting for, the 203.643 of rookie Mike Groff. And you see he's getting good speed on the backstretch, 228.033, way down low underneath the white line and all the way back out to the wall. 210.438, so he struck off about 18 miles an hour.
He's been one of those drivers notorious for running right down at the line. Last year, they even took precedence of how low he continually went the whole time.
His wife Sheila looking on, Menard Racing Team. Crawford's teammate is Gary Bettenhausen, who took over the team's sister car very late. In fact, he only had about 2 days of practice before qualifying opened, and he got his car into the field on the first day when Jim Crawford had an extraordinary crash, went about 15 feet in the air. In fact, a reporter asked Jim what kind of ride height he's running his car at. He said, well, depending on the day, anywhere from 1 inch to 15 feet.
He's picked up a lot of speed on his second lap, 214, 210 to 214, so he's really picking it up.
Crawford was also asked if he's gotten intimidated by this place, if he dislikes Indianapolis because of the crashes he has suffered here, including one that nearly crippled him a couple of years ago. He says, no, if I thought that, I wouldn't come back, but I love this place. There is no feeling in the world like qualifying for the Indianapolis 500.
It's so true. There's no place in the world like this. There's there's all these different tracks you run, but being in Indianapolis, carrying those speeds, I mean, that gets in your blood, and it's a love. You never want to give it up.
His 3-lap average of 212.769 would be the 4th fastest we've seen thus far today once the second round of qualifying began. And the checkered flag waves after laps of 210, 214, and 213. We'll see whether he gained or lost on that last circuit. And this has to be a tremendous moment of release for Jim Crawford. It's a pretty safe bet that Mike Groff has been bumped. As you see Jim Crawford's time, 212.200. He will join the field in the back row, and there you see Mike Groff. He must retaliate or wait until tomorrow. We are back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway where the bumping process has begun. There is Stan Fox getting into his car. Mike Groff, the rookie, has been bumped from the field by Jim Crawford. I said he qualified on the last row. That is not accurate, since we had 18 spaces coming in, and the second day of qualified for a lot of those slots. Actually, Crawford goes inside the 10th row. Let's get down to the pit lane quickly, and Jerry Punch.
After a rough month, Jim Crawford has qualified at Indianapolis, and Jim, 212.2 miles per hour, and he gets the congratulations here from the folks from Buick. An outstanding effort. Congratulations on a good run, Jim.
Thanks. That was about as hard as I tried for a long, long time, so I'm glad it's over.
Given what's happened this month, did the wind was really picking up? I mean, it looked like you weren't going to have your day again. The wind began to pick up as you went out for that green flag.
Yeah, compared to the problems we've had with the car, handling-wise, the wind was a minor detail, really. So, no, no excuses. That was it for today.
The primary car obviously had been quicker, but that car got airborne and was destroyed earlier. Was it tough to come back and get in a backup car, knowing that you had such a violent crash here early in the month?
Not necessarily for me. It's the team that, we've been beaten down the last couple of weeks. We've had all sorts of problems, engines, clutches, you name it. But they've done a hell of a job. This Menard team deserves the credit, not me.
What happened in turn 2 earlier today? The car looped a little bit.
It seems it was an oversight on our part. We had a problem in the back end. It bottomed out. The rear suspension bottomed out, and it just looped it. It caused it to loop. Just luckily, it didn't hit anything, and we got to find it. And now, let's just start this race and let's get Glidden on the front row, maybe.
Indeed it is. In the field, Jim Crawford. When we come back, we'll have Stan Fox qualifying lap as he tries to get in the field here for the 74th annual Indy 500. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Stan Fox is trying to qualify. He's trying to bump three-time Indy 500 winner Johnny Rutherford out of the field. His first lap, 2:12.706, more than enough. Rutherford's four-lap average, 2:04.801. So Stan Fox, if he can just hold body and soul together, is in great shape to get into this 500. And he will also qualify well up because of all the second-day qualifiers that have made the field. He will enter the field in relationship to those other second-round qualifiers, not in the 33rd spot, which is probably what will happen tomorrow on the ball board. Stan Fox has a chance to finish somewhere in the last 2 or 3 rows of this race. We're getting very late in the hour. The track will close at 6 o'clock. We'll try to get you all of the live information that we can before we wrap things up here today from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
He picked it up a little bit, 2:14.470.
So he is really ripping, and happy hour, although the wind is not calm, is certainly cooled off some. And Stan Fox is flying. Here's Jerry Punch.
Unbelievable that Stan Fox would even be able to get a qualifying attempt made. They blew the engine in this car, the only car they have, shortly after noon today. The crew has worked feverishly to get the engine back in the car and to put a brand new Buick motor in the car. They just got it in and got it through inspection a few minutes ago. They weren't sure how the car would run, haven't even cranked it up until they got out here on the line, and he is turning some blistering laps here. They are jumping up and down and celebrating. He has brand new tires. They didn't even scuff the tires, and Stan Fox may indeed be in the Indy 500.
Well, those are the tires that he will start the 500 with should he qualify and make it through Bubble Day tomorrow. And at the speed that Stan Fox is moving, I've got to believe that he is going to do it.
You know, there's not enough said